What's up, Mentors Collective community? On this episode, I have a very special guest for you. He went from a delivery driver in 1996 to now owning 6 brick and mortar pizza locations, pizza and beer. He now has over 250 employees. He's the author of the book, The Pizza Equation, and host of a weekly podcast, The Business Equation. Nick Bogacz, thank you so much for joining me today. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being on.
So not a lot of my guests are brick and mortar owners with 250 employees. A lot of my guests seem to be online business. And I think there's a lot of people listening right now who are interested in going your route, which is figuring out what they're passionate about and opening up stores that reflect that. So I would love to hear a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur, how you started as a delivery driver, and what were those steps that you took to go ahead and open the stores, the pizza and beer places of your dreams?
Yeah, I love to tell that story. It's it's one of those things that I grew up in a family of 4 brothers. We always loved sports. We always were out cutting grass, lemonade stands, baseball card shows, whatever we could do to make an extra buck. So I think the entrepreneurial bug started early. I started delivering pizzas because one of my friends told me that the tips were better than washing cars, which I was doing at the time. I started delivering pizzas and I fell in love with the team atmosphere of the pizza industry. You have this product that people just absolutely love. No matter where you go, to the door, to the baseball field, wherever it is you're delivering a pizza, everybody's happy to always see the pizza driver. And I just fell in love with the team atmosphere, that somebody's answering the phone, somebody's making the pizza as fast as they can, somebody's grabbing out of the oven, and then the driver goes off to the races. So I fell in love with it. And then, I was very young, 17, 18, got married very early, 20 years old, didn't go to college because at that time I had wrecked a few cars, became a manager at the pizzeria. So I felt like, here I am, 19, 20 years old. Well, why do I need college? I'm already a manager. I've got this thing made. And then started a family super young, and I realized, hey, I have to work a little harder and become a general manager. So I worked my way through the different chains. I worked for the big guys, the Papa John's, the Domino's. Along the way, I worked many different other jobs too. Having a family so young, there were times where I had 5 different jobs at one time. I think if you fast forward my pizza story, really, I worked from the time I was 20 till 28. Like I said, with all these big chains, you face a lot of pressures when you're in an industry like the pizza business. You face pressures from friends and family that you really don't have a real job because you're working in a restaurant, or you're delivering pizzas, or managing pizza shop, and you're working 70, 80 hours. So when you face those pressures, you go out and you try to get that quote unquote real job. And that's what I did. I started advertising for a local radio station, and I just realized that wasn't me. I hated being stuck in the cubicle. Hats off to anybody who could do cold calling. That's absolutely not for me. It's a big part of some businesses. And I think I just ended up back in the pizza business. And then through working through some more things with the pizza business, and I was delivering pizzas, and 3 different shops delivering pizzas. I bought my first house, $160,000 house, through delivering pizzas. I showed every single tip, was able to get a mortgage. A lot of people didn't believe that I really was delivering pizzas, and that's how I was supporting my family. From there, everybody kept saying, I still needed to get a real job. So I took the post office test, passed, became a mailman. And Wow. From the time I was 30 to 34, I delivered mail. I also delivered those 3 pizza shops on the side. I was delivering pizzas, hustling like crazy. Guy at the post office said, hey, I've got a gig at night at the Mellon Arena where the Pittsburgh Penguins play, counting the money in the count room, and said, would you like to work there? And I did. So for 3 to 4 years, I worked 90, 100 hours a week, five different jobs. I realized when I was at the post office, that's where dreams go to die, because people just check in and they figure I'm going to work there 40 years, and at the end, they're going to get a pension and be done. And I realized that there's no way I was going to let my dreams die. So I just hustled up, worked those 5 jobs, tried to save what I could. And really, I just knew one thing, that I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I love pizza. And for whatever it was going to take, I was going to open my own pizzeria. So that took me right to the cusp of getting ready to open my own shop. I realized that if I was going to do it, I had to do it for myself. I always was the guy who was the one that would go to the stores, raise the sales. I was a sales builder. That was always my forte, was marketing, selling a lot of pizzas. I mean, I was always the guy who had the highest store sales, the record weeks, could motivate a team. And a lot of it, I think really was from enjoying it, but also having brothers and kind of just the way we always got along. And I think it helped. And right when I decided it was time to open my own business, what had happened was I finally got down to 2 jobs, and I was running the pizzeria full-time as general manager, and I was working at the post office full-time. And I had said to the pizzeria, I said, hey, look, if you pay me what I make somewhat between the 2 jobs, I'll never leave. Because what had happened was that store was a Papa John's that was there for 21 years, right in the heart of University of Pittsburgh. And it had never done $1 million. First year I ran it, did $1 million. Profits before I took over was $27,000 for the year. When I was done, it was $149,000. So I felt like, I was worth, at the time I was probably asking maybe between $60,000 and $70,000. I was probably making between 40 and 50. I felt like if they paid me 60 to 70, I'd never leave. I'm glad they didn't pay me. They said, Nick, the truth is if you leave, we'll probably just sell it. They were business guys. I was more of a number to them. That's when I started going into pizza shops in the city of Pittsburgh. And I would say right where the University of Pittsburgh is, because I wanted to be in college town. I'd say, sell me your shop. And they'd say, get the hell out of there. The 5th store I walked into, he said, my buddy has a store over in Bloomfield, which was a little bit over the bridge, probably about 10 minutes from campus. Mm-hmm. I walked in and I said, oh man, it's a bar. Walked in the back, full pizza kitchen. Everything I needed. We sat down. I like to say for all the numbers matched up. And for the next 6 months, I kept saying, all I wanted was a pizza shop. The reality of how the deal worked was the 2 guys who owned it also owned a bunch of wireless retails, and they wanted to focus more on their retails. They had bought it because they had a cousin who they thought could run a bar and a pizza shop, and he disappeared. They just wanted out. I said, look, I want my pizza. I really want it. We had a number, $185,000. It included a liquor license that was worth about $50,000. And they said, well, how much money do you have? And I said, I don't have any money. I said, but here's what I do. I've done this with all these stores. And they said, well, we'll tell you what, it's your lucky day. See what you can save up over the next 9 months. And while you run the store, run it under our name and everything, and then put that money down, and we'll finance the rest over the next 5 years. And the rest is really history. It hit it off. I took the store from $5,000 a week to close to a $2 million store within a year and a half. We opened up the second store. That was 2012. Second store, 2014. Third store, 2016. Fourth store, 2018. Fifth store, 2019. The 6th store is just about, it's still on we would have been open without COVID. Now it's we're in the middle of trying to figure out exactly when we're going to open it with COVID. But that's the story. And I think a lot of it is just when you put your head down and work and you're surprised at what you get. But I think a lot of people get kind of detracted when they worry about money. And I think you really don't have to worry about the money. I think you can just kind of go at it. And if you work hard enough, good things will happen.
Yeah, you knock on enough doors, you're going to eventually find an opportunity that works for you. And that sounds like what you did. You showed a lot of grit in that first, maneuver to find that first store. You said you walked into 5 pizza stores, that 5th one, you finally found an opportunity that worked for you, and they were able to work with you financially. I want to hear a little bit about this deal that you made for this first store. So you didn't have much cash saved up. You weren't planning on getting a loan from a bank. What was kind of your plan going into this?
Well, I think what's interesting is, so I've bought 6 stores now. 5 out of the 6, I haven't gone to a bank and I haven't paid full price. I've had the former owner finance 5 out of 6 deals right now. And the other part of it is the one that I didn't get financed, I would have, but he got divorced in the middle of our deal and he ended up needing all the cash. So I worked those deals. And I think what's interesting, you have to understand in these situations that as bad as you want to buy a business, like it's your dream, it's your passion, you can't wait to buy this business. What you have to realize is somebody wants to sell it worse than what you want to buy it. They just want to get the hell out of there. Especially, part of my strategy has been not walking in and when someone says, you say, why do you want to sell it? And they say, well, I want to move to Florida. That's not the guy I want to buy a business off of. I want to buy it off of when I walk in and say, hey, why do you want to sell it? And he gives you the, hey, I used to be a banker and I thought the pizza thing was going to be easy and this is too hard. I don't want to do it. Or you walk in and sometimes, other people's hardship, it works out in favor for you. It may be they bought it for their son and the son's into drugs, or somebody got sick, or they had a heart attack. I mean, there's all kind of reasons why they can have hardships where they just need to unload it. They don't care. And at first everybody wants all the money at once. Mm-hmm. They really do. But when they realize you're serious and you have some of the money, or the first one was, to me, it was a lot of law of attraction. I was a student of the game and still am of Think and Grow Rich. I really felt like I wasn't worried about how it was going to happen. I just knew it was going to happen. In my head, it was already done. So that deal was proved the theory that it works. And then the other deals for me, it's the same thing. There's a lot of some savviness of making the deal, but there also was, a lot of believing that the deal was already done, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of the book and the teachings as well. So talk to me a little bit about your strategy. Now, you don't buy, say, a office space or somewhere in a building that's selling their space and build from scratch and brand from scratch. Your strategy is go in and find people that want to sell.
So my strategy is this. I look for pain. I look for somebody that has some pain. They just want to get the hell out of there.
How do you find that?
Everyone always talks about business location, location, location. What's that really mean? Is it a busy intersection? Is it a busy strip mall? I'll tell you what it means to me. What it means to me is that building at one time in its life was the place everybody went. If you're 35 years old and you remember going to birthday parties at that pizzeria, or maybe it's a really happening bar, and maybe you're older, but you say, oh man, back 20 years ago, that was the best bar around. They had bands, they had everything. It was so busy. So I don't want to buy a place that's busy. I want to buy a place that had life at one time. So I'm looking for a place that had life at one time. I'm looking for a place that somebody just wants to get the heck out of there because they'll give you a good deal. Mm-hmm. And then from there, that's really, really the structure. I'm part of it is I am looking for the pain because I want to be able to finance it the way I want to finance it. But yep. I'm looking for those two things overall. I'm looking for pain, and I'm looking for it used to be somewhere busy at one time.
Awesome. That's great advice for a lot of people out there, I think. And once you make this deal, say you go in there, you find the right place, you finance it the way you want to. Now you own a pizza shop that has its own name recognition, its own, loyal customers. Do you go in and just tear it up and replace it with your own systems? What is that generally like?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good question. So what we would do is the first one, it was just real slow. We grind it. I didn't go in and I was running under their name, so I didn't change a ton of stuff right away. I did look at like the competitors and saw how they were open. So I opened up an hour earlier and I opened up an hour later. Mm-hmm. And I would literally look across the street at the bar. And I still have bartenders to this day, 8 years later, that work for me. And they would laugh because, I look out the window and I would not shut our open sign off till they shut their open sign off first. And that was just my mentality, and that's how I went at it. And I think that's what you got to do is just go at it as hard as you can. And I think through that, we found a lot of just momentum, getting in there. So that was the first one. We changed things a little bit every day. I never would go into the store a work day and not change something. And I would say that probably went on for a year. We had a bartender that worked Tuesdays and Sundays, and every time she came in, she said, wow, there's like 5 or 6 or 10 things different. And it was true. We changed, I'm talking menu, procedures, walls, signs, drinks, bars, pizzas, everything was changed all the time. Every day, we just made sure we did something. We ate the elephant a little bit every single time. Now, when we got into the second store, I think where a lot of entrepreneurs go wrong is, first off, I think the build out can be really expensive and can be really difficult. And you got to really battle zoning because whatever you're putting in there hasn't been in there before. Mm-hmm. I like buying a pizza shop or a restaurant that's already there. Really only 2 of them have been pizza shops. The other 4 have been restaurants that we bought and converted into pizzerias. So when you're going and buying an existing building, a lot of time you don't have to deal with a lot of the zoning because you're already grandfathered in. So I think that's one plus. The other way that we go at it is we don't do the 2-month, 3-month, 6 months, 1 year process. Like this whole COVID thing's killing me that we don't have the new store open yet because I'm about the fastest guy I know moving to open a restaurant. We're really like Bar Rescue. Like when you watch Bar Rescue and they go in and they flip it in 4 days, like that's what we do. We bring in plumbers on top of electricians, on top of carpenters, POS guys, the sign guys. Everybody is lined up to do it. We flip the stores in 4 days. We take over on Monday. We open on Friday. And that's paint, ceilings. What we do is we take the staff. We train them at all our other stores first. So then we bring a whole new staff in. They help us get everything ready. We pop them open in 4 days. We just do a real life bar rescue is really what we're doing to get open. So the reason we do it that way is because you have so much money at stake that the longer you sit on it, your money just sits there and you spend more. So you just have to get open. And is it perfect when you open in 4 days? No, of course not. But is it really perfect when you wait 6 months to open? No, it's really not. There's always things you have to do after open. So my theory is let's get in and get open. And we just take I said about eating the elephant for the first approach. The second one is, they always say Rome wasn't built in one day. Well, I wasn't built in Rome. That's the way I look at it.
I love that. And yeah, I guess you're in your 6th store now. So now you've got a system where you have a team in place. You have those basically a button to push when you buy a new store. Everything comes in, knows what to do. And at least somewhat there's a system in place to get things rolling and set up the way that you like it and the way that you have already proven and know that works. So that's a super important thing.
Well, it is, because I think a lot of times when you talk about teams, people will think about the people that work for you, but you have to think about your team as your accountant, your banker, your electrician, your tile guy, your print shop. Like, there's so many guys that are on your team. And what you have to also realize is if you've got a guy on your team that you got to call 15 times till he answers your phone call, fire him. You don't have to use the electrician that you always use. If he's not doing the job, fire him and get a new one. Replace those guys on your team. If your accountant's not preparing the books the way you want and working with you and advising you throughout the year and doesn't want to meet with you only in tax season, does he want to meet with you? Fire him. Get somebody new. You have to bring in the right people on your team. It's super important.
Yep, couldn't agree more. And that's why contractors are a beautiful thing. I follow the same philosophy in my business. So we just spoke a lot about your process and, buying a place, setting up a place. Talk to me about your book, The Pizza Equation. Does it pretty much detail what we just spoke about? Or, what is that book about?
No, it does. I think it's a great book for anybody that wants to open up a pizzeria. It's a great book for anybody that just wants an insight to a small business. It's a great book for anybody who has a pizzeria. I tell a little bit of my story of getting how I got into the pizza business, a little bit of history of the pizza, but then there's some real tips and tactics and stuff that I use in my marketing game that really worked. It's an easy read. It's available on Amazon, but it's definitely, the thing with the pizza industry is a lot of these things that work in my market will also work in your market. So it's definitely a great book for anybody that's in the pizza industry.
Awesome. I'll be sure to check it out. You got to send me a copy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Business question, pizza related, that I've always been curious about. And this is going to be a fun one. If you're not comfortable answering, don't feel pressured to. But what are the margins on a large cheese pizza?
Well, see, that's what everybody thinks. That's why I get to buy the stores off the bankers sometimes, because, everybody always thinks, hey, pizza costs $2 or $1 and you sell it for 12. So you must make, $10 off of every pizza. Now, the way that I think the restaurant business works and the pizza industry works is if you're making 10%, you're doing everything right. 10% is about, at the end of the day, that's the margin. Sure, the pizza might cost, $3.50 with pepperoni and cheese, and you might sell for $14, but you're really not making 10 or $11. At the end of the day, if you make that 10%, you're doing really well, especially with a full service restaurant. And I think that's where it gets really tough, because you say, okay, well, 10%, but then what happens is if you have real tight margins, like your food cost is maybe 30%, and you don't watch the new guy throw all the cheese on the pizzas, you just went to 32%. So now you're down to 8% profit. And then maybe you've got the labor really isn't working out for you. You've got too many people scheduled, or people don't realize, they're out there smoking cigarettes and everything else, and they're not working. And the labor goes from maybe a labor goal of 22% to they run a 25% labor. Now your profits just went from 10% to 5%. So what I try to do is teach my guys what the numbers really mean and how to control them. We talk numbers every single week with my general managers. Every single Monday at 8:00, we have a phone meeting. I think that's really important in any business, that you understand your numbers and you talk through them with the people that are responsible for those numbers.
Yeah, definitely not fun conversations to have, but necessary for business owners to have. I mean, that's the lifeblood of your company right there.
Absolutely. So
some final questions and some general stuff for entrepreneurs out there, or aspiring entrepreneurs. Maybe they're stuck in a job they don't like. Maybe they're working in the mailroom where dreams go to die. Was there any specific moment or content that you consumed, a book you read, someone you were following that really moved the needle for you? Where like, this, enough is enough. I'm going to take this next step and, break out of my current situation? Is there anyone that you suggest to follow, or what was that moment for you?
So, I started a place where a lot of people start when they want to go on the road to self-improvement. I started listening to Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people say that, and the content is evergreen and it's great. What happened is when I listen to something or read something, a lot of times you'll start to hear people talk about something else. So he would talk about, somebody else or a book, and then I would start to read another book. And then before I know it, all these books that were kind of pushing me towards Think and Grow Rich. And when I read Think and Grow Rich, that's what the moment where it came together. But one step farther would be when I watched the movie The Secret and kind of explaining the book. I really got into Bob Proctor and his teachings. And I think that whole process, the thing that a lot of people think about when you try to become an entrepreneur is people talk about mentorship, and they really struggle about who to have as a mentor. And they think, well, who is it? How do I get a mentor? Do I just pick up the phone and call a mentor? What they don't realize is, Tony Robbins is a mentor of mine. I mean, I've listened to hours and hours and hours of Tony Robbins. Like, he's a mentor of mine. Bob Proctor, mentor of mine. Napoleon Hill, through all his teachings, mentor of mine. Like, I feel like I know these guys, and that's the whole thing that, and some of them, like Napoleon Hill hasn't been alive for years and years, but I feel like I know him from his teachings. And that's the thing about mentorship is, sure, it's great to have somebody in person that you can call and ask questions to. And I think that's very important. But don't underestimate the mentorship you can have through podcasts and books and readings and teachings. And I really think it's super important to go to seminars too. Like, definitely I've been to seminars because I'm like, wow, I love all these teachings. I'm going to go out and see a Bob Proctor seminar. There's something to be said to be live and be in the room when somebody's out there talking too. So yeah, I believe in all the self-help, basically, for sure.
Yeah, the personal development and the entrepreneurship, they are directly linked. And I tell everybody that you get to drink the Kool-Aid if you're going to be successful in this world. And I follow a lot of the same guys. I love the seminars. So one final question I ask all of my entrepreneurs that are on the show, and you already answered one of them, which is top 3 mentors that you like to follow. So you're Bob Proctor, you're Tony Robbins, and Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, I would say that's it. Yep.
Huge fans as well. What are a couple of books that you recommend most entrepreneurs pick up and read?
Great one is The Sales Machine from Chet Holmes.
Sales Machine.
Excellent book. One of my favorites. Definitely Think and Grow Rich. 1 Minute Manager is another good one. The one that I'm reading right now, I'll show you this one here. Just started Traction. So, I'm always reading, but I think there's some really good ones out there. But I always say Think and Grow Rich, and I always say The Sales Machine. I think they're just 2 fantastic books.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich is really a unique read. I've read it twice. It's a great book.
And the other thing I'll throw out there too with reading, because I think sometimes always people hear about how do I start to read or what do I read, and sometimes it's rereading the books too. Like, I find myself rereading a lot too. The books I mentioned, Sales Machine, I don't know, at least 5 times I've read it. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've read Think and Grow Rich, because sometimes you're at a different point in your life. So when you reread a book, you get different things out of it because you're in a different point in your life. So I think if you have favorite books out there, I encourage you to go out and reread them.
Couldn't agree more. And I'm an audiobook guy. So when I'm listening to books and then I listen a second and a third time, you get a whole different message out of it. So that's awesome. Okay, Nick, thank you so much for being on the show. This was really an awesome episode. Nick, I'm going to plug your book, The Pizza Equation, and a link in the description, as well as a link to your podcast, The Business Equation, which is a really good general listen speaking about for entrepreneurs in pretty much any realm of business. It hits on a lot of really great things. Your pizza shop, Caliente Pizza and Draft House.
PizzaDraftHouse.com. You can find me at nickbogacz.com and Nick Bogacz Official on Instagram.
Your pizza and Draft House. Is that all located in the same location if anyone wants to go test the pizza? Because I'm a big pizza connoisseur as well.
Yeah, well, something to throw out there that we really didn't touch on either is we're world champion pizza makers too. So I'm on the Pizza World Champions team. There's about 35 of us on it. We travel all over the world, Naples, Italy, London, Parma, Italy. And we have won 2016, 17, and 18 world titles for best pizza. And then 2019, my chef won the best pan pizza in Italy, best American pizza. So
okay, 2 minutes. What is your pizza secret? Because that's super impressive. That's amazing.
I think the pizza secret is we make them with love. I really mean that. I mean, we just love what we do. I think you can tell from the enthusiasm. It's one of those things I just always want to get better. So we're never satisfied. and we take it very, very seriously. So
Yeah, that sounds like a cop-out answer. How about ingredients, cheeses,
well,
tomatoes?
okay. To be honest, too, if you want to go a little deeper, I mean, we do use the best of the best. You know, we don't chintz out on anything. Like, I think that's the thing for an entrepreneur. This is probably a good question that you pushed me a little farther, because sometimes people look at how much money they can make and they don't go out and get the good product. You know, we use the most expensive cheese there is. We use the most expensive sauce there is. We don't use salt from the counter. We use salt from Egypt. You know, because they have the best salt. We use the best basil from California. Like, we use the best ingredients from all over. It's interesting when you start to look at, like, how do you put your product together. I didn't really care about the numbers in the beginning. I just cared about using the absolute best product. So, I mean, we use a lot of every little product. There's a lot of detail into it, all the way down to the basil and the salt and the sugar.
That's amazing. And now I got to come try this pizza. Egypt has the best salt. Go figure.
Yeah. A lot of different ingredients over there for sure.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a real pleasure. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of this. So thanks again.
All right, great. I appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.